Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an object show fan that has barely watched any object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome into Object Catchup. This is where we discuss object show episodes right after watching them. Whether they are new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, we just have here a little bit of a day. We're kind of just doing keep-ups yet again in kind of random order, depending on just what I need to get to, and we're just going to do it till I can. Probably not going to be too big of a day because you'll notice the last 2 days were both a 3.5-hour single day recording and a 4-hour single day recording. Both of those nearly record breaking, which means that, like, I need to chill. Like, come on, give me a little break, like, please. So we're gonna do a little bit, but it's not gonna be like a massive. We're just gonna do what I can, what I'm feeling like it. You know, we're not gonna do this. So we're going to start with a little bit of a mysterious one. So Miles, or cherryboolm, has uploaded episode 5 of their series Terrible Battle Again, which is apparently season 2 of a show called Terrible Battle. The problem is that Terrible Battle is that, like, I don't think this is an object show that exists. Like, at least not that I know of. Like, I can't find it. The thing about it is that it's a little bit of a generic, a name, but like if I look up like on the channel, there's nothing. Like if I look it up, it's not gonna find it. Which I mean, fair enough, but like I don't know. Like let me look it up right here. Terrible Battle. Like just really quickly, just to see if it appears. Yeah, you see on this channel, there's only Terrible Battle again. Maybe if I look up TB, like Terrible Battle TB, nope, no content that matches TB. Yeah, you see, so like I don't really know. So we're just gonna watch Terrible Battle again, presuming it's the first season, despite the fact that it says it's the second season. Whatever content the first season has, it is lost to media. So we're just gonna start from here, starting with the 2-year-old episode 1, titled "Support of the Drink." Let's go. Alright, that is episode 1 of what is maybe season 2 of Terrible Battle Again. So we have here our host Soda, who ends up hitting up the contestants. Apparently high viewers. These are viewers apparently. These 6 contestants that are doing the thing. We end up having the mean character be like, well, I don't care about you. So then Soda gets mad and be like, your challenge is to show support to me. So then a couple of characters would be like, you are cool, I support you. And then some characters don't know what's going on, some characters don't say anything, and some characters try to run away. We end up having our triangle be like, where you going? To your mom house? Hey, yo, got him. So, yeah, the 4 people didn't do it because the key doesn't know it, the lock doesn't know what's going on. The spray didn't say anything. The lipstick was like sassy about it, and then the mean character's mean. However, you can vote for prize. I don't know what you what. So the people who are safe, and then you vote for prize. I'm presuming this is equivalent to a vote to save, and then like the people with the most get a prize, and the person with the least doesn't get and the person with the least gets eliminated instead of a prize. Something along those lines, because that would make sense, right? But either way, a couple of quick details. Of course, this is a non-voice actor show, as Miles' shows tend to be. We end up, but overall, what I think it's pretty alright. Considering it, there is a lot of time generally to read these messages. A couple of them stay on screen for maybe even a little bit too long. But hey, I think it's better to have something be on screen for too long than it is to have something on screen be there for too little, right? So, perfectly suitable for me. Episode 2 is titled Cringephobia Nightmare. Here we go. Alright, that is episode 2, so we have presumably it's been a bit, because we do have some redesigns for people. Sometimes we're getting a redesign, it makes their straw ginormous. Is this a soda? This looks more like a freaking McFlurry now. But, either way, we end up having them hosted the elimination when the lip gloss gets eliminated with 4 votes, which is interesting. So maybe that's the reverse, right? Because, hold on, like, you were supposed to vote for a prize, so I guess the prize is elimination, because lip gloss the most votes and got eliminated, which means that the prize was elimination, because you were supposed to vote for a prize, so I'm guessing that's what happens. But yeah, lip gloss goes to jail as part of the elimination, but hey, at least there's some comfy beds. The ball circle is, screaming at the Lego brick for some reason. we're going to jail. Then we end up having some fellas do their things, and then we end up having the challenge. One of the interesting things that I do find quite interesting about the style still is like this design decision of making tongues reflect the color of the object is kind of interesting, right? Like how you have like the orange tongue for the triangle, you have the blue tongue for the soda. I think it's really interesting, and it's separate, and it makes the characters really do feel like quite a bit different to each other. So I think it's a success. Challenge is to watch a cringe video. They end up watching some like Fire Eefy video, and then the Locke, who wasn't there in the first place, gets over here and doesn't know what they're watching. Somehow they manage to look at the screen and not to realize what they're watching. But hey, you know, they're just too oblivious to it. So they end up being safe on accident. So we get to have the Google form. I'm presuming then that this is vote to eliminate. So you know, that's interesting. I like how the spray is spraying in the voting screen. But alright, it's time for episode 3, which is titled You Buggin'. Let's go. Alright, that is episode 3 of Terrible Battle again. So this is like Insectifoe's nightmare if it locked in. Yeah, we have the elimination here happening. So interesting thing. Okay, I figured out how this works. Basically, it seems that the prize votes are in the comments, right? So that's why you put the square brackets, and then the elimination is on a Google form. So both exist. The only thing that confuses me is that like there haven't been that many prize votes. You know, like I'm kind of confused. Like how does the prize work? You know, like considering I've never seen anybody get a prize yet, so I don't know. You can see in both this and the last episode that like we end up having this like mild like background to the text, which is not included in episode 1, and it's also not included in a lot of other shows. This seems to be a relatively mouse exclusive feature. I think it's a good feature though. I kind of like it. I mean, of course it covers more of the screen, however it does get again, like it does keep the text relatively safe in one direction, so that means that like you can consistently trust it that it'll be at the top and you can look there, right, instead of needing to search around the screen. So overall, like personally I like it, but I don't know. Anyways, a bug is here from a cave exploration from the Locke fella. Accidentally Lego drops a nuclear fucking bomb, and then they got rid of the bug. They did also destroy Earth, but they win the challenge, and then the world is on fire. I'm not sure how we're gonna recover from this, but either way, I don't know why this show's locking in on these elimination screens so hard. Look at this voting screen, bro. This voting screen is straight off fire. But alright, well, it's time to just keep it moving and keep it moving and keep it moving. This show is really fast. Like, this show asks itself out quickly, so I don't have a lot of time to talk about it. Episode 4, A Blast to Paris. Alright, that is episode 4, so the world is still on fire. Psych, not anymore. We end up having the eliminated contestant, I think, be Ball, right? Ball gets eliminated, with, apparently they tied with 5 votes. So yeah, they get both the prize and also eliminated. Is this a thing that's happened like multiple times? I think that's what's going on, right? That like the eliminated contestant just keeps getting the prize, like, so I mean, okay, fair enough, I guess, that they go to jail. Jail is the prize, and then we end up having the challenge, which is to get to Paris. So fellas come by. Turns out that spray can is very fast. The Log fella can fly, by the way. Could you do that? I don't remember you doing that, but you can do that. So they end up just, however, not knowing anything, but at least they decide of their own volition that they want to go to Paris. And in the meantime, however, Lego Block discovers that maybe if you light up TNT and do a jump, they will get launched over instead of dying, because dying would be what happens, but let's presume that's not what would happen. And it turns out that just having a yeet to Paris is gonna be enough. So they manage to get to Paris. They actually overshoot Paris and turn Paris on fire. So basically, the amount of places that have gone on fire in this series is very high. This is an arsonist's favorite show. But there goes the Paris. So true. And that means that we yet again have the fellas up for Elam B spray can, and also for, well, I feel like for the second time, the Log fella is up for Elam. You know, we've had like pretty much every person now be safe at least once, so it's interesting to find out, because, you know, like, wouldn't this mean that the next episode would be the finale, technically? Because I think it is, right? So, I don't know, it's going to be interesting, because, I mean, like, this is 1 year old, and, you know, the Terrible Battle Again 5 is like a week old, so something's about to be up. I still believe that, like, this show has absolutely no right whatsoever to have voting screens as unbelievably varied and cool as this show does. Why are the voting screens for this show better than 90% of shows? Look at this screen, bro. It's fire. What do you mean? Look at it. Every time you have the spray paint, the spray can always like hover over whatever next piece of UI is, and the log kind of going over. It's cool. It's cool as hell. You know? Like, come on. Alright. Time for Terrible Battle Again 5. Cringephobia Nightmare 2. Go. Okay, that is episode 5 of Terrible Battle Again, or well, TBA. Okay, so this one's kind of different. You can tell that the times have really changed. You can see how much of a different time pacing it is. Because, like, for example, from the first episode, it was there on screen for nearly too long. Here, I would debate that it's on screen for too little, in my opinion. It's mildly too little. I think that a lot of, especially the longer pieces of text, don't stay on screen for enough time. Because, like, in general, like, I think I like it when it's roughly around, like, speaking length that is on screen. Because then if you're, like, kind of reading it with, like, an internal monologue, which is personally what I tend to do, I try to kind of read it as if somebody was saying it. However, it ends up kind of being going a bit too fast. You kind of got to skim it a lot of the time. So yeah, I think it's a bit exaggeratingly speedy. But either way, we end up having some fellas. So the jail people escape. They escape the jail because we end up having, I think the ball managed to escape. So we end up having oh, because he's thin, not tin. Okay, oh yeah. There's some spelling mistakes throughout this series. It just kind of happens. But yeah, the triangle managed to get past, so she destroyed the bars. And then we end up having the policeman and getting destroyed. Now, 2-in-1 combo pack where the ball got thrown, destroyed the cup, and then it managed to shock the microwave. That was a crazy thing. Anyways, the soda comes in and does the elimination, where the eliminated contestant ends up being the spray can. However, you know, they started to get super mad. That's it. Listen here, you nincompoop. You know, we have a crash out. And then Soda goes like, well, you know, there's always a reason to get mad at someone, right? You know, as well. But yours is different. Radios are a different type of person. A person gets mad at someone for no reason. I mean, you did just burn down Paris. I mean, you didn't burn down Paris. Like, you didn't do that. Like, that wasn't your plan. So I guess it is for no reason. Okay, because, like, to be fair, like, okay, yeah, maybe you burned down Paris, right? Like, but that's not this guy's fault that you burned down Paris, right? That's the fault of the fella who tried to get to Paris really fast, right? So yeah, realistically, this spray can should absolutely redirect all of their complaints to the Lego fan, because, like, you fucking burned down Paris. Because Soda didn't burn down Paris. Soda just said go to Paris, and then by going to Paris, they burned down Paris, right? Like, they're just doing jolly ho shenanigans. So, I mean, like, I kind of understand. But yes, they end up getting absolutely eaten. I don't know what this whole, like past moment is with, like, this triangle and this breakout for, like, episode 1. Like, I don't really understand. Because, like, I don't like it here already. And plus, I want to go home and play some video games. Like, what is happening? Are they related? Because at the end, we also have this scene that's, like, important. Because they're kind of having, like, worried eyes or something. So, I don't exactly know what's happening. Anyways, then having the final challenge, which is to toss the ball into the cup. Or just any cup. The ball has to get into a cup, and then you win the show. However, they both end up having a little bit of a heart. Have you ever tried to quit the show? Have they? I don't know. But dude, this lock didn't even know that you were... But you probably didn't even know you were in a show. You don't know anything. But yeah, they try to get it in the cup, and they both miss. They actually both get the cup to fall. So that's a problem for them. Then we end up... okay, what are these three trying to do? Again, like, it just happens kind of fast. So I'm not, so, like, as you see, I don't catch enough of the information. Because, like, it just runs by fast. So I have to skim it. Since we escape, we could change the contract we was forced to sign just for 1 season. What? Are we supposed to get the contract when they have it somewhere we don't even know? And then follow me here. And the other one, me bought, and the other one was in a show. What? And the other one was in a show once. And guess who didn't ask permission to take us? I don't. Let's bring the old host back. Oh, yeah, this is season 1. Okay, yeah, okay. I understand why I don't know. It's because of season 1. The fake that doesn't exist. The season that doesn't exist. The mysterious season that's nowhere to be found. Okay, yeah, fair enough that I don't know that. But either way, yeah, I mean, it's a relatively cool little thing, this series overall. There's really not too much to it. It just happens so fast, right? Like, I mean, I would probably recommend this series to take its time a little bit, digest it a little bit more, like, take 2 minutes instead of 1 minute per episode, like, kind of like that. And I think it would have been nicer, because, like, at the end of the day, like, it's interesting, like, it's doing a lore. It's a season 2, which, of course, not my fault. That I don't know season 1. It's not linked anywhere. It's not in a playlist here. I don't. It's not linked to any description. I just don't know what it is to season 1. So like, in general, I mean, like, this is it's fine. It's a little too short maybe to realistically get me to think too much about it. But like overall, it's pretty alright. It's pretty alright. So yeah, if that was terrible battle again, let's go to the next thing. Alright, next up, something super fast. So Tiered, about a week ago, released another remake of the most generic object show of all time, quote-unquote, which is the name of the series. However, since it's a remake, we get to only watch episode 1 of the remake, and then everything else we're going to need to wait until a future event where, it's getting, like, more stuff. It's 25 seconds long, so let's just jump into it. Go. There it is, the remake. I mean, overall, I don't know how the original was, but this seems overall pretty clean at what it's doing. It does these kind of simple movements because it's trying to be generic. It's not trying to have art styles here. So, I think it's fair. A couple little corrections. Technically, actually, a balance beam challenge isn't usually the people who lose aren't up for Elam. Actually, those fellas are the team captain, and they pick teams. So that's actually what's supposed to happen. And also using Pacific time, people don't do that. People use Eastern time. But other than that, yes, it is indeed that. This is how you do it. Board. You can battle for $1 million. And then it's a balance beam challenge. I guess correct. That is indeed pretty generic. It did its job well. Anyways, a remake. In terms of a remake, it's pretty simple. It's not trying to wow anything away, but it's not supposed to. So, you know what? Yeah, I approve of this remake, and I don't think there's going to be more, but if there is, I guess I'll watch them. Alright, next thing. Alright, are you ready for some more Digital Clocks media? Because I sure am, because Object Nonchalant has had another batch of episode releases since the last time we took a look at it. Object Nonchalant, if you remember, is the series that happened quite a while ago, where originally we ended up having a first batch of episodes. However, the love of the host's life ended up like dying, and then it just turned to shit. However, randomly, about in episode 5, we ended up having a reset with them mysteriously missing. Huh, okay. Well, 3 more episodes have released, including episode 8, which is Remembering, where we ended up before the reset, and then 9 and 10. So I don't know what's going to happen here, but I guess we'll find out. It's time for episode 8, What's Sticky and Brown. Go! Alright, there it is, episode 8, the most technically difficult concept to perform after the reset, because of course in episode 4 what ends up happening is that the fella is so upset that they just kind of end up not care, like the president looking at the body, so they're just end up turning a stick and be like, get this shit to me. So here we need to invent a contrived reason for them to do that anyways, despite being in a jolly mood. Apparently they were super busy and invent a challenge in 3 seconds. Then the challenge ends up getting done in the same exact way, and then that's about it. So we have officially crossed the reset point. We are officially where the reset of Object Nonchalant originally happened, and we just simply have to, I guess, keep an eye out on what's going to happen next. I mean, these episodes, episode 9 and 10. One thing I want to point out, which I don't know if I originally noticed, I believe that the episodic numbers, right, were whole. And wait, hold on, let me actually check, because I was noticing this if this was a detail or if they're not. So hold on, the episode numbers from 1 to 4, they're like graffitied, right? And then you'll notice from 5 onwards, they're dotted, which is like a pre-reset, post-reset, as if something is missing. Which again, I like this idea, dude. If only it just went hard on it. If only it just like tried to proper like point itself out, like it would be cool. Episode 9, not to get political, but okay, I never pay attention to the voting screen, but there's always something wag going on here. What do you mean the host is up for voting? Wait, no, that's the host. Yeah, you're up for Elam. Like, that's you. That's the top right. That's like just the host. Okay, well, yeah, vote to get them out of here. What, That's interesting. So, alright, we're officially crossed the post reset point, which means that by this moment on, it doesn't need to follow any more orders from, like, what used to happen. It just kind of has to do what it's doing. Challenge is to get the baton out from the middle of the ice block. Fellas are, in general, having a pretty impossible task with this because they don't have any tools at their disposal, but the star, thankfully, manages to just kind of, like, YOLO it. The ice is afraid of the star, and with that capability, they just managed to do a little boop, and the ice just starts and then just deletes itself. So they get the baton. Good job, Star. Everybody else is up for elimination. Again, we're post reset, so from this moment on, we're just get regular nonchalant shenanigans. Unless it like resets again. Like, are we eventually gonna see an anti-reset where we get to see this challenge in the old route? Like, I don't know what the fuck's happening. Anyways. Episode 10 is titled I Swear If They Do This One More Time. Let's go! Wait, hold on, just cutting myself off really quick just to point out that no, actually, that's just ice cream. That's not the host, that's just the ice cream's icon. I'm stupid, I'm sorry. I am a fake analysis. I am a fake Catchup. Go make Object Catchup 2, that's better than this. Okay, I'm sorry. Alright, let's go. Episode 10, go. Alright, that is episode 10. So Circle gets eliminated. Circle just says toodles, a toodle pip, and then it ends up, well, they don't actually say toodle pip, but they just say bye world and then dip. And then Tack feels a little weird about it because it's like, the Circle fella, I've never talked to them, but they're giving off weird vibes, Giving off vibes that they feel like they were seen together, and then a quick flashback of what definitely happened. I like, wait a minute, what is this? Doesn't this flashback loop like 5 times? Yeah, this flashback loops like 7 images like 3 times. This is great. But it's pretending that there's way more to the flashback than there is. But like, either way, yes, it is actually doing a little bit of trying to give off a little bit of storytelling. It's really interesting. Does it do it correctly? I mean, it does it fine. I mean, realistically speaking, in universe, this makes no sense, right? Because it's like, what, the guy was giving off bad vibes. Well, good thing you eliminated them. They're not here anymore, so you don't need to worry about it, right? Like, if you really think about it, right? Like, in the actual universe itself is not a problem. For us, this is content. However, for the actual in-universe of how this tax being is made, like, if you thought the fellow was weird, then, like, they're gone now. So you don't need to worry about it. This is not a problem, just like everybody else. So, yeah. The final challenge, wait, is it the final challenge? Oh yeah, it's the final challenge indeed. The challenge is to, because it's the classic of turning into your emoji self, because, yeah, so we end up having Star manage to turn into themselves. I guess, like, it's a little bit unfair for like, equals 3, because, like, at the end of the day, like, it's just that they are, an emoticon, they're not an emoji, so they're really... them against the world out here, So, either way, Star ends up being safe, so they will... Wait, what's happening? Wait. Oh, we're voting to eliminate. Are we? Wait. Yes, we are voting to eliminate. Oh, I'm confused because usually I vote to win. Okay, so we're voting to eliminate, and then the rest people do the last challenge. Okay, yeah, sure. Alright, it's interesting, but, look, it's this show. You never know what's about to happen. Are we gonna have reset number 7? Like, are we gonna true? We did true genocide. Now we did true pacifist. Now we need to do neutral. I don't know. Like, what are we doing every round? We're doing object nonchalant all endings. Like, what is it that we do? I don't know. But look, we'll find out. I still believe that this concept is an absolute goldmine of a concept. I've not seen another show do this, and I think it's an absolute goldmine that is found completely on accident. Like, this is like the type of concept that you just find out, oh, would this be funny? And then you think about it, it's like, wait, that's really interesting. Like, this, I don't believe that this had any type of narrative vision. Like, I thought this just happened on accident, but it's cool, okay? Alright, next thing. Alright, next up, it's time to head over into Google's Diplomatic Show, because Google's Diplomatic Show, or GDS 6, has released about a week ago. So, just as a reminder for what the hell is going on, in the last episode, Drive hosted the episode because of Google being all worried because they're trying to sort out, I believe, what's going on in the fridge, and it's just a very important thing, alright? So Drive is hosting, and they keep hosting. We have here our challenge, which was to get a cow in a bucket or something, and they end up doing that to reasonable degrees, and then the eliminated contestant ended up being a paint, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we end up having another episode where Drive, so yeah, don't know what's going on with Google, don't know what's going on with Drive, we'll get to find out. I see that there's a compilation that released, so it might be a turning point. Well, time to find out. Episode 6 is titled Going Places. Let's go there. Alright, so that is episode 6 of Google's Diplomatic Show. So, we have ourselves a very interesting episode. I mean, I can just tell you, I was not expecting this thing to happen. So we start ourselves off here with apparently there's just a crowd of people starting to huddle up around Google's house as Google keeps trying to figure out something. I don't know what they're trying to figure out. They point to, there's this whiteboard here at the beginning that has a couple of X's. So the X's are what? The eliminated contestants. Right, surely. Yeah, these are the... Wait, are they the eliminated contestants? I think they are the eliminated contestants. And then we end up having the circled ones. So who are the circled ones? Who are the circled contestants? We got graduation hat, Pac-Man, the Eiffel Tower, and then... Who is that? I don't know who that last one is. I can't tell from the silhouette. You look like a mushroom. What? Okay, I don't know who that is. But those 4 people are circled out as being quote-unquote maybe important. So, I don't know what's going on. It's interesting because a bunch of them were up for elimination. I mean, the bottom 2 of this elimination is there, right? Pac-Man and the fellas are listed. So, I don't know what exactly is going on that. On that aspect, right? Or is that glue stick? Is that actually a clue? Wait, is that glue stick that's circled out? Did we just single out the team that's up for Elam? Oh, I guess we have to, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, because there's no way, because the glue stick is anywhere else. So, presumably that's just the status of the show. Okay, that's kind of interesting. I don't know why, but alright. We're having 34 votes, which is the most votes since Drivey got here, because Drivey wasn't here in episode 1, right? So, we end up having, Drivey end up hosting the elimination, with the eliminated contestant ends up being Blue Pac-Man, who ended up getting out with how many votes? 19. Yeah, quite a lot, significantly more than anybody else. So they end up getting out. That makes sense. They're a non-speaking contestant that hasn't had too much to really make themselves notable outside of it, so they end up dipping. Then we end up having the challenge, which is apparently gonna be sorted out later, so it's going to be more expansive. So yeah, Drive is sorting out a challenge, and in the meantime they dip. So we end up having this fella. Alright, so then the team switch. They have to form 4 teams of 3. Well, I mean, they don't have to. Technically, Drivey did keep it open to interpretation. Drivey was like, yo, could you do that, please? And then they went like, okay. You know, like, it's one of those things. Again, like, I believe it's a lot down to respect for the host. If the host says to do a thing and the host is nice, sure, right? And Drivey is relatively nice comparatively to Google, so I think it's fair enough. So they end up forming their own set of teams, so we end up having... what teams are it? We don't have like that team v team screen, so I have to just fetch them out. So they end up forming the Hanker Alfie Alliance, so that means the Hedge and the school supplies, and bringing in Alf into their trio. Okay. Then we end up having Burj Khalifa join, we end up having Eiffel Tower decide that they're going to join Burj Khalifa's team. However, that has too many people, so that means that team ends up being the freaking fish tank. You have a 3-letter name that I never remembered, like BFM or something. Burj Khalifa and Eiffel Tower end up making the next trio, and then we end up having the Lemon Fella, a glue stick, and then also Graduation Hat end up forming Better Than the Burge, right? If that's correct. And then finally Natlo just ends up kind of remain. Natlo just remains with the fiery the spark. What do you call it? The spark. You weren't called Spark. You had a different name. God damn it. It's been a while. Okay, been a month. I've watched a lot of shows. Since December, but like either way, yeah. So they keep it moving, and then eventually they decide that they should dip away from Google's house because, you know, getting crowded over there. So they end up deciding to go north. So they end up going north, and the drivey eventually comes back and tries to tell them to wait up. So they end up spawning a portal, and as they're walking north, they end up waking up on an airplane right after the intro happens. Pretty good time for the intro. So we end up having them be on a plane in a new island, a new location called Mods. Okay, presumably a new... We don't know if this is a new planet, a new dimension, or just a new area, right? Because, like, from you see the confines here of this location, it looks... I mean, there might be elsewhere. I don't really know exactly what this is. Because as you can see how it's confined by these dotted lines in the map that's showing mods. I'm not 100% sure if that means that they're like, does this mean that that is the extent of what we're seeing? Or is there literally just all ocean surrounding this? Is this like an island? I don't exactly know. However, we do end up having mods, and then the teams, after jumping off the airplane, end up getting end up getting teleported to various degrees, to various locations around this world, island, whatever, to get around this location, okay? So then they start deciding to, just start building some houses because, they're trying to survive. But then it turns out that they end up starting to build a town. So, okay, here's the deal. We kind of roughly figure out what this challenge is. It seems like the challenge is to build the biggest settlement, right? The challenge is world domination, right? Which is interesting. Presumably, I think what happens here for a channel like this is that, like, Google is very much so buying, like, I think Drivey is buying time, right? I think that's the idea, because Google is off doing the thing, so Drivey's like, okay, I need to make the most staller possible challenge. This is that, right? This is the most stalling imaginable challenge possible. So the challenge here is for each team to build the biggest settlement. Now, they kind of figure this out. We end up having buttons they can press to spawn in either a citizen / a worker, so that way you can kind of just, do it stuff. The buttons kind of appear around them and somebody shows up. So that is something that is happening. I will say, though, that, like, I believe, from what I'm looking at this, that, like, I think it's pretty unrealistic that we would figure this out, because it's like... Well, okay, there's a couple of things. Is that, first of all, they're completely separated from everybody else. So they shouldn't know. Like, okay, hold on, let me try to say this. This show is acting as if the people here are capable of seeing the UI that we're seeing, right? Like, that's pretty much what's happening. So it's like, somehow they know roughly where everybody else is, even though they're on the ground and they don't have a screen where they can see it. So that means that, for example, like when the standings show up, they notice that, like, the team makes a remark that they're last. And it's like, well, how do you know? How do you know? Right? Because this isn't information that is given out to the contestants. Right? There's not a gigantic speaker the size of an island at the top. So it's like, how do they know? Right? So, so then it's like, I mean... The Drivey never explained to them the challenge. That has been pointed out, that they don't know what Drivey's doing. But so then they just kind of YOLO and figured out the challenge. Well, they're first, but then, like, even if you know it's first, how are you first? Is it because you have the biggest town? Maybe, right? But it's kind of interesting. So I'm not 100% sure how these people know about the challenge, right? That's just kind of the thing about it. In terms of what I think of the challenge is great. It is an amazing little challenge, because you end up having to do some interesting things. Right? You end up having to proper fight teams to end up growing, expanding land, like at the end of the day, and then you end up having a lot of location. It's a lot of action, but a lot of strategy and a lot of locational variety. War is unfortunately really interesting. I'm not gonna lie. There's a reason why war games are good. Hearts of Iron is interesting, right? There's those type of strategy, because there's so much strategy to it, but there's also so much action to it, but there's also so much everything else to it, right? So, like, there's so many factors to it. So it doesn't matter. So a challenge directly kind of dependent on it is really interesting. But, either ways, yes, the fellas end up making their establishments and doing whatever it is that they're doing, even though, again, nobody hits them up. So eventually, after the team start forming it, and somehow they know that they're supposed to build bigger towns through the challenge, even though nobody told them, we end up having so build bigger establishments. All capital towns get established. Hold on, when is the freaking thing? When does it show up? I don't know. It shows up here. So what is this? So yeah, we have the two towns relatively closer around the forest because they went out from the desert into the forest, right? So they're relatively close by. So then everything is kind of on the east, you know, of this world. So they're both gonna. So then they decide to all go down on a boat, and I'm not sure where. Hold on. Okay, I'm kind of being disordered right now because and I'm going out of disorder. I'm kind of going out of order right now, because like. It's a little bit confusing. It's not that confusing to watch, but like it's kind of confusing to try to explain because it's like, okay, we're building towns different ways. You know, the Tundra one builds it mainly out of igloos. The other fellas end up building a massive town, the Natload. So they end up doing that better than the birds. End up doing pretty well. They end up trying to take over the mountain, and then the other fellas try to stop them because again they somehow heard that. How did you hear that? I'm sorry. How? They're off in the other side of the mountain. You heard them saying they want to take over the mountain. What? Huh? But yeah, they end up going up there and they have a battle. A couple of people die, but there's no recovery center. So like we kind of forgot about that. So Gluestick ends up dying, but there's not a recovery center. So they end up deciding to truce and decided that they're going to try to migrate to a nicer place. So then going down on a boat to somewhere. I don't know where. So it's interesting because you'll notice that at least from the map, none of them. Moon is moon is off in the sky because it's nighttime. So I just noticed that. But like, anyways. I'll notice that like neither of the two towns are close to the ocean. They're close, like the town for Bear and the Birds, I believe, is right next to a river. So like they made it like a river town. So like that's interesting. However, at the same, like I don't know, stuff's happening. All right, they're kind of doing stuff. Then they're going over. They end up deciding who they're going to eliminate because theoretically they lost the challenge to Alpha Hancock. Wait a minute, but this is a different team. Wait. No, this is a different team. Wait, so what are they doing? Wait. No, this is everybody. Wait, is it? Hold on. Wait. What? Wait, how many people are here? Yeah, this is everybody. No, it's not. Wait, somebody's missing. Is it? No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Wait, but Gluestick's back. Wait, what? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Gluestick is in this boat. Wait, what? Wait, I'm lost. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But it's 3 to 12. Who the fuck is missing? Yo, what? Because Gluestick's here. Gluestick's not dead. Wait, what? Yo, I just got mad confused. Oh, it's the fire. It's because they're not tall enough. Oh, okay. Okay. But Gluestick is here in this shot for some reason. Where are you supposed to be dead? What? Okay, I've just been majorly bamboozled right now by this show. But anyways, then it's saying that okay, then that means that the Alf Beagle Alliance lose. So then they're deciding to vote off Alf, and they just end up throwing them overboard, which is interesting. And in the meantime, they end up migrating. So, okay, that is interesting. So what they do, so they do this for a little bit, and then they all, somehow all of them collectively decide, how do they have this communication method? How are they doing this? What? You say, I'm lost about this. That is the one thing about this episode that made no sense. Because, okay, this challenge idea is excellent. And this just idea, you know, because I don't know what's gonna happen next, but I'm interested in that. The only thing that I'm confused about, and that kind of disappoints me a little bit of the challenge, is that I have no idea how the fuck they're communicating. You know, like they don't have technology. They don't have the WhatsApp. Like they don't, they can't just be like, yo, come over. You know, I thought this was gonna be interesting in the sense that it was gonna be ancient times, right? Because you know, they don't have a communication method. Pretty much, yeah, nobody currently there is a technological device that can communicate. So like at the end of the day, like they were on their own. They got TP to different directions. There's no host telling them anything. There is nothing that should theoretically give them the information that we're hearing, but we're acting as if they can hear it. And somehow what one team is saying, everybody else can hear, even though, you know, an island is pretty big. There should be miles of space between the settlements. So like I'm a little confused how this is happening, right? So like that's like the one thing that throws me off for a loop. You know, that's the one thing that throws me for a loop. That I don't understand how there's the go communication. So, like, because you're telling me these two teams come over here at the top of the mountain, and then the other teams are off in the fucking who knows where in the tundra has heard it, and it goes like, okay, sure. Right? Like this objectively should take longer, right? Surely. This should be a longer deal than it is, you know, but it's somehow not. So that's kind of like the one thing I kind of that I find unfortunate about this, right? I feel like it's really because the lack of communication, right, and the rare view that you have, like I don't know where everybody else is, right? But like, you know, like kind of going, we're the only ones here until you realize there's other people there, right? Like nearby or trying to take over, right? Like you see in the distance. That's one of the most interesting parts about, you know, like at the end of the day, establishments, like starting up societies. It's like you might not be alone, but you don't know because you don't have that information. So I think that's one of the most interesting parts, and it was pretty much completely neglected for the sake of somehow the UI that we're seeing as a viewer, they can also see as a contestant, right? So, like, I believe that, well, it's an excellent little challenge idea, and I believe heading into the future is also rather cool. I will point out that, like, yeah, I do believe that it absolutely could have made more advantage of the interesting detail, that the fact that they couldn't communicate. Realistically speaking, there's no way they should have been able to communicate, but now they can, right? So, either way, yeah, excellent voting icons, by the way. look at these voting icons. I mean, of course, it's just for a vote to favorite. Like, which one do I prefer the most? Dude, I really like the snake. The snake looks really cool. But hey, what was I point out? There's an animator. I believe for the first time ever, an animator not over than Empty Room animates. You can kind of tell with at least one of their scenes. What scene is it that they end up animate? Dude, it's one scene like in the team portion. That ends up kind of being different, but I don't remember which one. It's like one with like Lemon Demon or something. Dude, when is it? Wait, it's like not that far away. Trust me, I promise, it's not that far away. Oh yeah, it's like this scene. At what 2 minutes, right? Like this looks differently animated. Right, the first scene after the team, like the first scene of the team swapping, I believe looks like a different style. So I would guess that like this scene is animated by somebody else. If there's any other scene, I didn't notice it, but I also wasn't paying attention after that. So yeah. Anyways, this episode is really cool. I'm not gonna lie, it's a really different challenge idea. I don't believe they take advantage of the coolest parts of it. Right, we stumble on an extremely cool challenge idea. I don't think we use the coolest element of it. We use like the B level, very cool, but not that cool, right? Elements. However, in general, it's fun, it's cool. It leads us into whatever the hell is happening. I'm curious. There's an outro about it. There's a post-credit scene, by the way. And the post-credit scene is literally just the scene that we already saw, but with a VHS grain on it about the refrigerator. Just hey, remember this thing? It's still here. When and then what happens? And then we end up having like there's a Luigi sound at the end. I'm presuming that's not important. I swear to God, if episode 7 opens up with Luigi jumping out of a fridge, I'm about to go crazy. But yeah. By the way, I just noticed. I just noticed the icon of the chat. Wait, what is this? Oh, the icon of the channel in the video is like a Google but flower. Yo, that's kind of sick. Anyways, the very last thing that I wanted to point out is you know, Google has like 1 million products, so there's a little bit of a missed opportunity for the Google Cat to have been being one of the smaller Google products, you know. Like would have kind of been cool, right? Like I don't know, like a Gmail cat or whatever. No, Gmail is a bit too big, but like one of the other things, right? Like what? Let me look at the Google, you know, like a Google Photos cat or whatever. You know, like what a Gemini cat? No. But like, anyway, you know, it would have been funny. But anyway, whatever. Okay, that's all. Cool stuff. But guys, I don't know. I'm hyped. All right, next thing. Alright, next up we are going over to the Yellow Emerald suite of things because we're going to be taking a look at MBM AfterMayhem. So this was something that I originally didn't take a look at. You might be wondering why. Well, because it was a spinoff, and at the end of the day I was just trying to watch the main MBM series because that was what I was supposed to watch, right? But now we got to drop by and watch the MBM AfterMayhem episodes, okay? So the AfterMayhem episodes take place roughly like some space, I maybe in the middle. I don't exactly know what After Mayhem is, to be 100% honest, but on the complete series playlist, they kind of appear, I believe, like in rough chronological order when they released, rather than any type of in-universe date. But I believe, like my guess is that it will be like skits in the city rather than competition, but we'll see. I don't really know. There's 3 episodes. This was episode 3 released 5 days ago. Starting at episode 1, however, it's in all caps. MBM After Mayhem 1, Frisdentpackza. Go. Alright, that is MBM After Mayhem 1. Okay, so whatever the hell I thought it was gonna be before, it is not that. So this is like, a interview show, thing hosted by Mailbox and Pluggy, where they ask, to previous contestants a couple of viewer questions and also have them perform a challenge which they didn't originally do, except for the latest challenge in which they give an advantage to the player for the next episode, okay? So, I mean, okay, let's talk about MBMB, which I watched a while ago now, so we need to kind of reset ourselves back to the position. This is post-MBMB 4, alright, which is interesting. And then we end up having here some interviews with, the current limited contestants, which were Frisbee in episode 1, Dench in episode 2, Icepack in episode 3, and then Final Pizza in episode 4. So that's what happens. Then we end up asking them, and we end up having some interesting details, because we end up actually having a little bit of a lore. There's a couple of lore elements in this episode, right? So, like, for example, right at the end of it, we end up having Pizza actually end up, like, giving an advantage to somebody in the next episode, okay? Which ends up being, Mr. Hat. They're giving their advantage to Mr. Hat, right? So then that's alright, but then we also end up having some situations like, Mailbox and Pluggy getting married, which we now know, right? Like, that's a thing. Like, that ended up being a thing in the episode, kind of by a surprise when I watched MBMB. I kind of remember it. But then, like, here, we're now, this isn't as much of a surprise anymore. Like, there is context to what is actually happening, right? Which is fair, that is fair enough, right? So this is cool. However, these lore elements make for an interesting debate this show. Okay, because this show ends up being in kind of the midst of the MBMB stuff. So we kind of end up having an interesting question, which is like, okay, I didn't watch this originally. I skipped this for just watching MBMB. However, what would have happened if I did? Because this does make for an interesting kind of half thing in between the MBMB episodes, which, like, you should probably watch, however, you don't have to, right? Like, it's not the main deal, but it's kind of an interesting thing, right? Because, like, it opens up an interesting kind of worms, because it's like, it cuts off, because, like, watching this in order, right? If you're, like, doing whatever one day, watch along that I was doing, like, it would cut the pacing off pretty significantly. However, you can kind of question that it's good or it's bad, right? For a lot of people, having a pace killer ends up kind of being bad, right? However, I think a pace killer is bad when it's an episode, right? However, when it's something like this, which is kind of an off interview show, we can very clearly tell there's a different style, there's kind of like a different thing, and, like, you can expect something of a lower energy, like, you can expect to just kind of chill a little bit, this gives you that additional context about a couple of things in the world that is useful, so in general, I believe that could this exist? Yes. Do I think that it is bad watching it in the middle of the MBM? No, I don't think it is. It depends on how exactly you're watching it. However, I think that, like, it acts as a relatively solid breather between overall pretty, I guess, intense episodes that end up happening around these times. So yeah, overall, I can see why this exists. I will point out, though, I'm going to be 100% for real with you here. This is not exactly the most interesting pair of questions to ask these contestants. Like, I mean, like, the questions that we asked of Pizza, that was like half of that was just in the show. Like, come on. Like, bro, do you regret leaving? No, that was the point, that they wanted to leave. Okay, that it's been like half an episode. What? And it's like, yo, did you realize that the pizza song was all about eating pizza? Yes, there was a scene where they were awkward about it. Did you not see it? I swear, I remember it. It's been like 5 million years since I watched MBB. Like, come on, what are we doing? That question. Ask good questions. Come on, bro. what ended up happening? We ended up having like a couple of interesting questions that ended up happening. Kind of like the one with dentures being like, how did you die? Like that's kind of interesting, like because it is a kind of interesting perspective, right? From this fella that just got revived randomly to be in the show because like, oh, I died and then randomly came back and I found out everybody died. So okay, that's not great, right? But like for example, the questions that I kind of ask, like Frisbee's like, "Yo, what else did your parents invent?" And proceeds to list the things that we already know they invented. Okay, cool, bro. And then a laser gun, which is not exactly a very unique invention. Like this isn't like, come on, Frisbee. Like I understand, like. Your parents probably died 5,000 years ago, right? But in general, like, bro. Yeah, I mean, other than the fact that it's not an extra set of questions, I do believe that at the end of the day, the content is still fun. Doing the challenges kind of makes for some easy gags, right? Like Frisbee doing the fear challenge. Right? No, Frisbee gets to sing about pizza. Dentures gets to get eaten, I guess. And then Ice Pack builds a chair for a lollipop. That was a fun gag. Ice Pack is one of those mysterious individuals. They don't care about anything except when they do, and then they'll care about everything. Give lollipop. Okay. you gotta get the lollipop on the board. But yeah. Well, hold on. What is a Frisdentpackza? Is that a... Oh, no. Oh, that's every name together. Oh, so that's Frisdent, so Frisbee Dentures, and then the last part of the last two names, so it's Packza, which is Ice Pack and Pizza. Okay, sure. Alright, I understand. That kind of sounded like a word, I'm not gonna lie. I can't even lie. That will bring me here well. Well, what is episode 2 called? Is it called, what the hell would it be called? If you think I'm about to recite you the elimination order of MBMB, you're way wrong. I do not remember it. I would not remember it. That is too complex of a detail. Don't worry about it. It's not because I don't like anything. I don't know I don't know the elimination order or teapot. Okay? I have no idea. That is not that. Do I know the elimination order of inanimate insanity? Who got out? Jack, then I already forgot. Like Jack, AirTag, and Light Bulb. Right? That's it. That's like basically I already kind of barely remember. Like, bro. Okay, whatever. Time for the second episode of After Mayhem. Wait, is this a misleading title? I mean, it kind of is. Like, okay, I feel like if it was titled MBMB After Mayhem, yeah, I feel like it would be better. You want to know why? Because I think that having it called MBM After Mayhem gives me the vibes that it's like MBM has happened, and then like there's a gap of time where they're just hanging out in the city, right? So I thought that this was gonna be like a skit show for that period of time between the MBM and MBMB after the mayhem of MBM. But I think MBMB After Mayhem makes a lot more sense because like it's after mayhem of an MBMB episode, right? That makes sense, right? I think that makes more sense. Anyways, episode 2 of MBM After Mayhem is titled I Glove Seedy's Nuts Dog. I regret having spoken. Okay, let's go. Alright, that is episode 2 of MBM After Mayhem, the spin-off show to Mystery Box Madness. Better indeed, our hosts are back here. I like the general kind of like talk show aesthetic that this does try to emit, because it could because it sounds kind of easy, like, oh yeah, of course you would do that. Like, not really. Like it's not actually a forced thing that it has to be like that, because like, if you think about it, like, he could have just done it in the elimination area, whatever, like that freaking green room. But no, actually, like, it probably takes the aesthetic, as you see, it adds stuff like audiences, claps, and everything with the introduction and everything. So, like, I like the details that are that to at least give it a little bit of a character, because I think that's what helps separate this from just, like, a video, right? Like, you can very clearly tell if this is, like, a show within the show, right? It's like, it's a show within the universe, sorry. because like it's got audience, it's got like that stuff going on, rather than it's just a YouTube video, right? That's what separates this from like generic object show blank answers your questions, right? So that's like the primary difference. Our hosts are back, and this time apparently the characters will be answering questions and joining us in duos. So the first duo is Peanut and Spikecaller, two characters that like each other a lot. No, I'm kidding. Just as a reminder, by the way, we are currently, so hold on, this currently sets itself up after MBM7. Yes, MBM7. Yeah, that makes sense. Because then we've had a total of, because then we end up having the 4 eliminations there. Okay, sure. So, yeah, we end up having, because, yeah, like, what was I saying? Yeah, okay, yes. So we end up having these two that, of course, beef. Now, is the idea of having them go side, of having, like, the characters actively interact a good idea? But, I mean, it does kind of remove some of that chill vibe. Right, that chill aesthetic that I was on about in the earlier, that like it ends up kind of being a mood chiller, this compared to the MBMB when watching it in a full lineup. However, do I care? I feel like no, because like this, while it is more chill, this something like watching something like this really feels like it's kind of like a universe investor in a way, right? Like you're investing yourself into the universe, right? By watching by watching this kind of like bonus content, you know. This content does not necessarily watch, however, it just ends up having the characters talk in a relatively natural habitat, right? And not have like and there's not too much competition going on here, right? It's just kind of like the characters talk, they don't like each other, they do whatever, right? They just kind of talk. Which they have their own beefs and stuff, but like, we end up just having a bit of a more general conversation, comparatively speaking, to like a show, right? So like, for example, I'm trying to think of an example from another like piece of media, and I currently can't exactly think of one. It's like kind of like the MCU, you know, like the MCU. Like at the end of the day, you gotta watch like the movies, but at the end of the day, it's like there's certain like the TV shows, for example, at least for a while, they were kind of like, you know, you watch them to get invested in the universe. However, you don't necessarily need it to understand the main plot lines. The same thing goes with this, right? Because at the end of the day, while this still does have lore elements that end up getting added on, like for example the pet bacteria, which eventually gets mentioned as an element in MBM, like even, I think the latest episode, right? MBM 10. So like, even after that, this is still like a relatively important detail after all, because of just the details, right? So they mention anything that is a lore relevant thing here, it'll get mentioned later on in the show anyways, so like it's not too big of a deal. You can just guess, oh, this happened off screen, even if it happened on screen. But yeah, Peanut and Spikecaller still have their own beef, because if you remember in the Jungle Challenge, Magnet, Peanut was like, yo, Spikecaller, you are not real. And that was earth-shatteringly bad for Spikecaller, who did not like hearing that, but, you know, they end up they're beefing forever, and now they end up just having that a constant time. So then we end up having them play their own challenge, which ends up being what is it called? Barracuda Enclosure, or Shark Tank, of course. So they end up forming their own inventions. So what invention do they form? We end up having a giant life-size nutcracker that the Spikecaller ends up forming to refer to Peanut. I'm just gonna say, pretty good invention. I wasn't expecting Spikecaller to be able to make anything. I wasn't expecting Spikecaller to be able to invent anything, and they invented something that was it's really good. You know, if you happen to have life-size peanuts that aren't people, right? That would be like a pretty good invention. So I actually like that. And then in the meantime, Peanut ends up coming back and being like, "Yo, I made you a growth ray." So then they shoot like a bacteria, and then we end up having the pet bacteria. But to be fair, I do agree that it looks hanky. But yeah, no, that's down in like 1 second. So I don't think it was great. And then we have Glovey and Seedy. These two are mildly less interesting because they just have a bit less interactions in general. However, yeah, the questions this time are a bit better. I like them a bit more of it here because they're not quite as like this was answered in the show core, right? Even though a couple of them are kind of easy. Like, what would you say to Sketchy? And is that like, or like, no, sorry, like, would you forgive? And then you ask that Glovey, obviously Glovey's gonna say no, right? Like, there's a couple of questions that are kind of obvious, but like in general, like it is quite better than a beefing because Seedy's trying to do therapy, which like at the end of the day is like you'll notice that like this is before the stuff that we know about in like MBMB 10, which means that like we don't have this knowledge about Seedy doing this in MBMB because like where Seedy has like the therapy session with everybody else, right? Over here we now do. You know, that's the situation. Here we get to understand that, like, okay, this has been an association that was made. So yeah, this gives more context. It really does. It just gives like that subtle amount of more context that like when you watch the MBMB later, you'll be like, okay, yeah, I see this. Yeah, I understand this. Yeah, this makes sense. Right? Like it gives that additional perspective that I think is rather nice. I like the episode ends on the gag, of course, which is like, will there be something special lined up after the episode? Seedy guesses yes, and since it's Family Feud, it just shows up with the X on screen and then the episode ends. That's a fun gag. And then Glovey ends up apparently getting to pick two things about the next episode, which I don't remember what they were, but they were something. There was something in the next episode. Hold on, what episode was it? Because it was, episode 8 would be Partners in Grime, right? So... what is it? Was this the sports one? No, it wasn't. No, that was episode 5. What happened to episode 8? There was like the mud puddle. But what would that have to do with Sketchy? Because I remember there was like a one... no, because I'm sorry. Because there was one line, alright, in that episode where I remember Sketchy be like, Glovey picked this part, right? And it was like, yes. But I don't remember why. I don't remember what it... no, I don't remember what it was. Which is unfortunate, but you know, it goes how it goes. Anyways, it is time for the MBM AfterMayhem numero 3. Mr. Slicer Sketcher, I hardly Geoder. Comedy genius. All right, let's go to let's jump into whatever the hell that is. Let's go. Alright, that is episode 3 of MBM AfterMayhem, and well, of course, the latest one, the one that released a couple of days ago. So, we have here a little bit of a different situation, and it brings up a little bit of an interesting thing here, this episode, comparatively to the other ones, right? And that is because of when I'm watching this. Of course, when I'm watching this MBMB, this is the latest episode of MBM, right? Of the MBM universe. In the meantime, whereas the other ones we watched like the other episodes that happened, which means that especially because the MBMB 10 happened, everybody came back. You can see that like the stuff that was mentioned in those episodes now has additional context added onto it from the actual MBMB, while here it doesn't yet because I just watched it, right? Like, I don't know what the future is in store. So, for example, when they chat about the challenge at the end, right, and the additions that are going to happen to it, it's interesting because it's like, well, that's not quite a thing that we've seen yet. And in the meantime, in the other ones, we have. So that brings up a very interesting, like, debate here about like in general just kind of the catch-up process, if you think about it, right? Because like the way that I analyze the episodes is truly different directly from when for like the release date of the episode, which is really interesting, right? And like while of course it's one of those things like, well, yeah, obviously your perspective changes depending on how old the episode is and how and what else you watch, right? It still ends up as one of those things where it's like it's important to point it out because like a lot of the time you just kind of won't notice it as a thing, you know, like you will kind of forget that like, yes, everything is biased based on what else I've watched and what else I've not watched. So keep that in mind, of course, as this is a great example of that. So we have here another episode of them with Mailbox and Pluggy ending up as the host, as we end up having a discussion with the eliminated contestants. We end up having a little chat to Geoder. This chat to Geoder goes relatively well. Now that Geoder is, you know, not dumb, quote unquote, you know, is not acting dumb. I mean, according to them, they were acting crazy rather than dumb. Which, I mean, like, yeah, but also no. Like, you know, Geoder literally just did not act as serious as they did. However, you know, now they have to be both Pluggy gets super sad. But yeah, in general, this chant with Geode goes relatively well because you see that Geode ends up being like a very healthy person. As far as people in MBM, a lot of them have some problems, but Geode ends up being a very healthy individual once they're like in this state, because like you can see that like they've got the fun, but they've also got the logic, right? They're one of the few people in the MBM cast to truly currently have that really good mix of like serious and also fun, right? Like there's not that many characters that possess both of those, and Geoder does, so it ends up being a really important thing, right, to them. So we end up having some Slicey eventually arrive there after Geoder, because Geoder said that they were a total wimp, which fair enough. I think that Slicey ends up being fair enough as a little bit of a wimp, especially because they got out on what episode? Did they get out? No, Geode got out in Partners in Crime, right? And then that was the episode where they told Slice to do the bullshit. They told Slice they were boring. There's like a situation. Again, I watched MBMB ages ago. So yeah, Slicey ends up asking, "Yo, can you host After Mayhem?" Apparently no, because they deserve it, which I mean that's pretty cool, as they're the least popular characters, which I mean fair. They have so little screen time, because like at the end of the day it's like, yeah, they're not popular because they just don't show up a lot. Like in general, Mailbox is so far removed from like the way that they were kind of as an MBM contestant, that it just ends up kind of they're feeling different. It just feels different. Therefore, the connection to these two, there's not as much of it as there were connections to the current cast, right? Because there's it's been a little bit of a more developing. Slicey considers their names sexy. I don't know if they agree. Should I try saying it? Yes, let me try saying it. Slicey. Okay, yeah, sure, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. I'll allow it. I'll give it to him. And then we end up having. Have you ever wanted to be a 5-star chef? No, because I want to be a good critic. Okay, so I think the people who criticize food should be just as good as cooking food as, the chefs. Because I think in society, the people who judge other people's work are people who could do it better. I know, I know a lot of people criticize that I enjoy it, but really that, you can say your opinion. When it comes to criticize, you need to have, like, a knowledge of the skill that you're critiquing it. Okay, and then they talk for 10 minutes, and the gag is that Mailbox eventually tells them to shut up because they're just talking for an immense amount of time. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I feel called out. I'm not gonna lie, Slicey cannot watch these videos. It's over for Slice. Slicey would give the thumbs down. This was a bad review. Would not like Object Catchup, because Object Catchup is firmly and decisively person who doesn't know how to do anything. Me talking about shows as if I do. So like, fair enough. Fair enough. That is actually an interesting thing, though. Should I talk about it for a moment? Yeah, let's talk about it for a moment. So, like, this is kind of an interesting debate, because it's like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of discussing episodes here and stuff from this interesting angle, where it's like, no, I'm not a show creator. I actually do nearly none of the components of show creation. I say I can pull off of voice acting pretty well. I've done a couple of voice actings, and I believe there should be more on the way. So, I believe I can pull off that part. However, in general, in terms of like the nitty gritty, right, of like the writing, the animating, storyboarding, I don't know how to do any of that because I'm not good at drawing, and writing I haven't done in ages. So like in general, it arises from that very interesting question. At the end of the day, who is you to talk about this? Who am I to talk about this? And like the perspective that I always spin Object Catchup as is like, notice, I mean, it'll slip out of my mouth sometime, but I don't try to call this a review. I never try to call this a review. I discuss it, what I think it does wrong or right, but I don't think it counts as a review because I don't have that perspective, right? Like, I have opinion, but yeah, I don't have the perspective, so I don't try to call it a review, right? That's why I don't give it like ratings or stars or whatever to chase after, because I know that would be inconsistent, and I know that wouldn't be fair and it wouldn't be objective, right? so like in general, I call these discussions rather than reviews in the personal sense, and it's like I still believe that there is a very useful indicator to have, of course, a viewer discuss these shows and what I think, because I am pretty much just a viewer, right? There's not too much of an industry position here, which means that like I have a different perspective. Like for example, when many movies they do test screenings, right, with audiences to find out what they think. Because when making a movie, because the process of making this is very different than the process of me watching it, right? So, like, the problem of me watching, I can give a unique perspective that is very useful, right? And especially considering, object shows don't tend to have test screenings, right? They just tend to be a person making a thing. They'll show it to the friends, maybe. But, like, in general, there's kind of, there's not too much to it. So I still believe that I think that I have something pretty good to offer, right, in terms of an opinion that not too many people give, especially considering the object show audience ends up being relatively young. So I think that that this is kind of the mission behind Catchup, because sometimes it's good to remind it, and Slice has brought up a good point here, and I feel like there's not that many excuses to talk about this, so we're going to talk about it right here. All right, because I think that's a solid moment here to kind of remember what Object Catchup actually is as a whole, right? Like what I'm chatting about, because at the end of the day, you'll notice the amount of mistakes that I make with talking about episodes and getting things wrong, it's a lot, but it's useful to know when I've understood things wrong, because that means that maybe it should have been explained better, those things where it's because I'm just a casual viewer that's not going to be able to understand things. I'm not claiming to be anything more than that. But anyways, we end up having the next fella talk, which is Sketchy. And in the meantime, Sketchy ends up being asked as one of the questions, what that overknown game is, and apparently it's like Undertale in reverse, where you end up going up into the clouds, into the overground. Yes, my favorite spot. And then Mailbox, after 10 minutes, eventually tells them to stop talking, and Polly ends up getting very mad about them, because this show's about the contestants, not about us. And, they end up having this big old drawn argument about, how they end up, how you got, Pluggy's like, well, you're just doing this for the screen time? I thought you were doing this so that we could do something cool together. But nope, not apparently not. Mill was like, well, I do care about that. Why can't I care about two things at the same time? And Pluggy goes like, no, you have to decide, because you've now broken my trust by saying one of the things was your priority when it was actually another thing. So, you see, both of those are pretty valid. But then eventually, after Sketchy ends up opening Clash of Clans, it ends up that the two fella, I don't know if it's classic. It's a game. It's one of the. It's like the Supercell. Okay, the I don't know which symbol. Right? I don't think it's Clash of Clans. But it's not a Brawl Stars. I don't know which one it is. Does it matter? I mean, it does though. What game is Sketchy playing? This will be relevant in MBMB 40. Trust me, guys. There's gonna be a Clash of Clans themed challenge. It was revealed right here. Conspiracy theory. You see, this is why I'm not a critic. Okay. But yeah, they end up getting together, and then they end up dipping away to, reconcile, rekindle. But thankfully, Marble is here to act as a replacement host. Hey, it's Marble. We haven't seen Marble in a while. Runner-up of a Mystery Backs Madness, and they end up just kind of asking the questions. They're doing the little goofball situation. They end up asking how much this cactus cost. It doesn't cost $1 billion. It costs nothing. I mean, it's nothing. I mean, it's probably like a DIY thing, but nothing. I mean, it'll cost the price of the paper. No, at the very minimum, it'll cost $1. I don't know. But okay, and then we end up having our conversation with Mr. Hat, where Pizza ends up dropping by, and we end up having them pick what they want for the future of the episode, and Pizza ends up deciding that we should have a challenge include one of the pre-jurors helping out, which is relatively interesting. I mean, there is that little bit of a debate where it's a bunch of these people don't want anything to do with this. You saw how many people in the rejoin dipped off. So, in general, a lot of people don't really want much to do with the show. But I think, for one challenge, it's fine, right? I don't think there's anybody who's going to protest, probably, right? So, I think we'll be relatively chill. And yeah, team friendship. Yeah, they're gonna go. Yeah, they're gonna go get ice cream. Oh yeah, that's what those two. Oh yeah, that's what Mailbox and Feather. No, that's a three. That's what Mailbox and Pluggy went to do. They went to eat ice cream, and now Power of Friendship is also going over to eat ice cream. This video is sponsored by the Ice Cream Corporation. And yeah, that is MBM AfterMayhem. It's an interesting little show. That, you know, at this point, maybe Size will actually have to host the next one, because those two went off to get ice cream. I don't know when they're coming back. Maybe it might not be in 4 episodes time. But yeah, it was cool. I like it. Personally, I think it does make a good addition. Like, as I said, I still do believe that thing that, like, sometimes it could potentially kill pacing to anybody who's watching the complete series, like, the series in chronological order. It could. However, personally, I would treat it as more like a bonus chill thing to get you invested into the universe. And you'll notice that it doesn't have as many views as regular MBMB episodes because, like, it doesn't need to, right? So, this is just for the fans, right? For the fans. A couple of additional questions which are kind of interesting. Not that much usually. And like that, they're kind of being alright, okay? Yeah. That was After Mayhem. Let's do whatever the hell the next thing on the agenda is. Okay. Alright, next up we're going to be going over to Samolache, because Samolache has dropped 2 episodes of back-to-back from different shows, so we will be chatting about them. First of all, however, there's episode 2B of Battle for Epicness, this series that we reviewed like a month ago-ish, which released 7 months ago, so there's a big gap between episodes here. In episodes 2A, after the elimination, we ended up having the challenge, which was a race. How was this? Yeah, it was like a race. You had to drive a certain amount of distance. One team managed to get there by vomiting, right? So let me try to remember. Yeah, it's to race along the road. Yeah, it's just a relatively long road. Just you gotta get there to the finish. It's a race. There's nothing much to it. Episode 2B. Missing in action. Let's go. Alright, that is episode 2B of Battle for Epicness, Missing in Action. So, in general, I think that this episode is relatively intuitive. It does, like, enough to make itself understandable. It does, overall, relatively standard stuff. The main thing that this object show has going for it is that you'll notice how, like, you can just see it immediately. Like, it kind of plays on exaggerated expressions. You'll kind of notice, like, the facial expressions that these characters do, at the end of the day, they're very varied, you know? Like, the variety on display in this is a lot different than majority of other shows, and that is the power as well that you can have by using this, like, hand-drawn aesthetic, rather than using this, rather than using asset style, because it gives you this opportunity to, like, give in more proper, like, interesting character faces, and, like, you can really tell here that we're taking maximum advantage of it. You know, we're trying to make characters look different very consistently, give them unique faces, and it ends up making overall relatively interesting watchable experience. In terms of the challenge as well, I'd say it goes pretty alright. We end up having the Demon Vomited, who got it there first already, so yeah. In the meantime, we end up having Coconut and Film Camera. Like, you can see just how much, like the freaking 4 times the Film Camera blushes. Like, you can tell, like, we're just kind of having fun with drawing these, and, like, it does kind of rub off on the viewer, you know, where that's, like, at the end of the day, it was a fun experience to probably draw this, and overall it was a fun experience to do this, so, yeah, in terms of the challenge, the fellas end up running Coconut and the Film Camera, who's apparently Coconut's a famous actor from the movie. That movie about a Coconut. Yes, Coconut probably would star in that movie. I agree. And then we end up also having the other fella that was in their team, who's the football, who apparently runs really fast. And to be fair, they run really fast. They got to the end in like 0.3 seconds, to be 100% fair. There's one in the background. Dude, I don't know. Today's not been a great day for that, for not having amounts of background noise, so my bad on that one. But yeah, so they kind of sabotage themselves by saying a live story, but yeah. And in the meantime, the last team ends up managing to kind of just run by and make it, while the only team that actually tries to drive down the road. Yes, you try to drive down the road. How foolish of you to try to drive down a road. Yeah, apparently the fella who was driving the car to the lamp doesn't have registration. For some reason, the other fellas can't drive. I mean, one of them doesn't have limbs, and the other one looks like they're about 4 years old, so maybe that's why. So then, because of that, they end up getting stopped by the stop sign who wants license and registration. We don't think of breaking laws in this probably lawless land, and then they end up being up for Elam. I mean, it's Lamp's fault for not having license and registration. However, this ball does look grumpy in the voting image, and we vote out the mean character usually, right? So let's say that they get out. Let's say that this like ball fella gets out. All right. Okay. That is also, let's jump into the other show that Samolache dropped by recently, which is an episode 1 of a show. It is episode 1 of a show called SUS, or SUS. A new object show I made because I'm bored. I wonder where I've heard that before. Let's go. Alright, that is SUS 1. So apparently in this show, every episode you are voting a contestant into the show, and then at the end of it, something happens. There is, on the finale, there will be the intro to the twist. I don't, like, and then now we need to vote a character to join in when we only have their silhouette, by the way. We don't even know what they are. So basically, this show is asking for us to put a lot of faith that it knows what it's doing. Like, how's it go? Like, trust me, in the finale, I'll tell you, trust me, vote one of these silhouettes to join. I don't even know, what are these? Like, okay, A is definitely a chicken leg. B is some sort of electronic device. I'd usually imagine like an alarm clock. That would make sense. But it could be a couple of things. Like a controller maybe, but it gives me alarm clock vibes. And then like, you know, those night sounds, yeah. And then C, it looks like a buttercup, right? Or is that like is that, no, like buttercup's a flower, sorry. Isn't buttercup like a size? Is that not a thing? Like, there's like a whatever. Anyways, it's like one of those little cups that has like butter on it. Okay. And either way, we end up having a voting end. I don't know who joined. I'd probably join for the B fella just because I'm curious what they are. While the other ones are relative. I mean, they're not gonna be too much special probably, unless C secretly turns out to be a robot. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. This show is interesting because it's pretty much telling you, yo, you're not gonna be interested in this because we're not really gonna do anything until the finale. So like, I mean, I don't know. I'm hoping for the best. Good luck in getting there, I guess. But interesting. All right then. That is really all I can realistically say. This show has hidden every single possible detail from me. Next thing. Alright, next up, something which I'm going to be honest, I completely missed. I don't know how I missed it. I was told about it and everything, and I was like, yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it, but I don't know, I just didn't find it on the list of subscriptions. It was not on the subscription feed. No, it definitely was, I just missed it, my bad. It's the Trophy Takedown Minis, created by Blood Drop Animations. I don't take a look at shorts, however, these were uploaded in long-form content, which means that we get to upload them, that we get to look at them. So, we'll start with Trophy Takedown Mini 1, which was released 2 weeks ago, 90 seconds. Let's jump into it. Alright, yeah, I mean, that's a mini at the end of the day. We end up seeing a quick balance beam challenge take place throughout the course of 20 seconds. One fella slips past onto the water. Another fella is too weak to get up, so the loser, whatever their name is, ends up punching them out, but then falling themselves, and then finally the Coca-Cola explodes, and that means that the other fella is up for, that everybody else is up for elimination instead of the Coke. Just, as usual, just gonna point out, this is more of a micro, because, like, I'm gonna coin the term micro for minis that don't know how long a mini is, because a mini is still 1 minute, like, it's the length of a TikTok, like, it's 60 seconds, but this is still, like, it's just so fast. But either way, time for the Trophy Takedown Mini 2. Let's go. Alright, that is episode 2. Okay, yo, this Ruser guy is trolling. You tell him in the last episode he just kicked somebody while they're down. In this episode, they proceed to fucking eat an apple just straight. Like, you don't need to, you don't need to do cannibalism to murder them. Like, that's so painful. And then they end up getting through the challenge by being draw a cool picture. Oh, I drew the words cool picture. Ruser is a troll. I'm telling you, this guy would have a personality. This guy would have a badass personality. Anyways, they're safe alongside of freaking goopy fella who just draws themselves. In the meantime, there are fellas who drew a sun and Coca-Cola who accidentally tore the paper are up for Elam. Who's getting out? No idea. However, overall, yep, it's a mini. It's a really small mini, but it does the job pretty well. You know, it shows off the challenge, how everybody did in it, and you know, it gets the job done in a quick amount of time, just like a mini should do. So good job. Next thing. Alright, the last thing in this shortened day that we're going to be taking a look at is the latest video from MintyTown, the latest short, which has an interesting name. I don't know how to say it. Well, how it reads itself out is Kaksi. However, in the same way that Nolla is Nolla, it might be Kaksi. I'm not 100% sure how you're supposed to say it. All I know is that, you know, the Nolla shorts have been quite interesting, so we're just going to get into it. We're going to watch it, and we're going to just give in a heart-to-heart conversation about it real quick. Alright, that is this Nolla short right here, and yeah, I mean, as it goes with these as of late, with this set of them, they end up being relatively unanalyzable here for this. They are incompatible with Object Catchup as a concept. I just cannot grasp this in time from my one watch to be able to reasonably understand it. So I don't want to talk too much, like, because like I feel like any thing that I could really say at the end of the day arrives as a disservice to what it's actually trying to be, you know? Like, I'm supposed to put more time than one watch into this to ever be able to really feel it. So, like, I can't really feel right saying too much about this. My absolute main thing that I have to say, though, is that, like, go watch it. Well, go watch it yourself. Go point it out yourself, go discover it yourself. It's absolutely worth a watch. It's only about 3 minutes, this, and I mean, so far with all the other Nolla shorts combined, it's really not that long. You still only have like about 12 total minutes of content between them. Like, there's not too much time, and it's absolutely worth it. It'll get you to think a bit, and then you get to properly reckon it. I can, despite the fact that of course I don't really understand it, I can feel its emotion a little bit, because like what this music reminds me of something. This music reminds me of one of my favorite games. You know what this music reminds me of? It really did remind me of The Beginner's Guide. The Beginner's Guide is one of my favorite games. It is one of my favorite stories just out there. It is written excellently, and while it is not my favorite game, because the Stanley Parable is my favorite game, created by the same creator, and it also has a lot of similar pieces that, like, when it's trying to do this type of storytelling, stuff like the Stanley Parable and stuff like the Beginner's Guide, and even some of the other stuff, like more recent, like Wonderstop, ends up taking it, right? This, like some of like Davey Whedon's work, and since Davey Whedon is absolutely my favorite writer, just in general, I like Resident like, you know, I've sort of clocked how that type of storytelling works. So even if something like this, like, I don't really know what's happening, and like, I mean, again, I'm saying I don't really know. I have a vague grasp, but I'm not gonna say it, okay? Because I don't want my vague grasp to be wrong. In this case, you know, I feel like there's, in a lot of times I just say things with like the basis that, like, if it's correct, I'll get it fixed. But like with this, I don't think I have the right to be wrong. You know, I don't think I should be out here, you know, publicly saying wrong things about this, when at the end of the day, it's very personal work, and it's very personal things to do with it, right? Like, the beginning says it's not supposed to make sense immediately. So I don't want to say wrong things about it, right? I don't want to make a wrong interpretation. Don't want to give a wrong interpretation. I just want to be, right? And again, part of me wants to try. A part of me is like, these arrows down at the bottom, like, this is an alphabet, right? Like, surely this is a type of writing. Like, I can discover what this is. I can try to find out, but like, stop. You know? I'm not built for it. I'm not built for it. You know? Like, you can probably get, like, I don't know, like, there's an apostrophe here. This is probably the word it's, right? But again, I can't be spending the time here, you know, because otherwise there's no first of all, as far as I'm aware, I gave a super quick check. I didn't find any basis for this alphabet to be immediately solved. So like in general, I'm still just gonna be like the people that are smarter than me can figure this out. Because I don't think I can give this any of the due respect that it needs. But absolutely, go check it out yourself. And go make your own assessment about what you think of these shorts. Do they hit you in the feels? Because for me, they managed to still evoke that sense of like somebody's self really gets put into it a little bit. Somebody's like emotions from a time definitely get put into it, and I think that like I respect it a lot. Even though maybe don't immediately understand it. In the awards. The community post, you'll notice that I gave the beacon the short of the year, because it was like it really hit, that one hit me because I have had a similar relations to things, but like so even just from an example with the beacon, right, like seeing how a short, when it does relate to you, works. So then it's like I can, even though I can't understand this yet, I can fill in the blank, and I can accept that this is deep, and I respect it a lot for the work that it has done out there in the world. Shout out to these fellas. Their designs are still adorable. Just gonna point it out. This like vape, like you still look absolutely adorable. But yeah, okay. That was that. I'd say that's a nice note to end it on. Let's go to the outro. Alright, that will be all for today's episode of Object Catchup. A shorter day was definitely necessary. It was overdue. You'll notice how I kind of take these, right? You notice I kind of rise in terms of how much I'm doing, how much I'm covering, and you'll notice that it starts to proper get on a up trajectory, and then as soon as that, like there's eventually a high where I'm just immediately have to self-control, because like if I, after 2-3 hour episodes, put myself again, and then I do it again, and then I do it again, like I'm just done. After a little while, I'm just gonna be done. So I have to kind of do the self-maintaining of like bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, right? Like I have to sort of sort myself out. So that's why the length of these episodes end up being inconsistent. But like at the end of the day, like. This is a smaller episode, yes, but it's 1 hour and a half. Like, it's still a lot, for any type of. For any other creator, I would say that 1 hour and a half of video would be a lot, like it's just that here in Object Catchup we work under very weird standards, right? But I would say that like in general, 1 hour and a half is totally fine. So yeah, I'm happy to have covered the stuff that I've covered, especially because the next things on the list would be pretty massive anyway, so I won't really be capable of fitting too much else in with the concept of the episode. So like overall, that is alright. For the shows that we watch, we're mostly all caught up. See you next time. Goodbye.